Even though I just caught Mark cheating, there is no way in hell I was breaking up with him. Yes, I know most people will call me stupid for it, but I really could give a damn. Mark is the best man I have ever had in my life. Not just that, he's the best man I've ever seen anyone in my family have. So I would be a fool to walk away from him. Plus, Crystal has been just waiting for me to let him go so she can have him back. But that ain't gonna happen. At least not while I'm alive. Well, Marquita and Ebony, we have made it to another episode of Rock With Me. We're on chapter 12, question mark. And so this chapter is actually a continuation of chapter 10, Rings, where Shell actually went over to it was Mark's ex-fiance, Crystal's house, but Crystal is actually roommates with his sister Mina. And so she saw Mark outside. She followed him after finding out or seeing him driving, and she just wanted to know where he was going and saw, where he stopped. And then she decided to go up in there and fight the girl. So now in chapter 12, she's waiting on Mark to get back home, and we hear her thoughts. And so her thought is pretty much she didn't have any regrets. She was kind of gloating about how she beat the girl up in her own house. And then she was pretty much saying that she felt like he was worth it because of what Mark did for her. Like he took care of her when she was pregnant, and how he works, and he was better than all the guys that her mom had ever dated. But then when Mark enters the house, he's pretty pissed off, of course. And uh, they go through this dialogue, and Shell asks him if he still loves Crystal. Well, he really didn't answer the question directly. And then Shell asked him if he loves her, and his answer was, "Well, I'm with you. I'm here," but he never answered it directly. So to me, that definitely is some red flags. Now, I want to start out with this question though, and direct it to you, Marquita. Have you ever had a man that you really like break up with you? And if so, how did you process it? How did you handle it?
So, in my whole lifetime, I've only been with two people. So, the first relationship, if you can even call that a relationship, it was just like, oh, he's here, he likes me, I like him. It is what it is. Let's get together. Um, that guy and also like my current husband are like literally the only two people I have ever been with in my life. So I was not, as experienced as most people, dating around or anything like that. But in terms of being broken up with, no, I have never been broken up with. Clearly, I'm still married to my husband and my first boyfriend at the time. It was some interesting rumors that were going around the school about his sexuality, and I questioned it. And, I'm like, maybe we should just split up. And he mutually agreed. And that was it. So, no, I have never experienced a breakup.
Okay. Well, what about you, Miss Ebony? Have you ever uh had a man that you really like break up with you, and then how did you handle that?
Yeah, one of my exes, I thought I just was, head over heels for him, and he dumped me at like 8:30 in the morning when we were at work. And when I tell you he trampled all over my heart, ran over it, backed up, reversed, and ran over it again. So yeah, he broke up with me. We both worked at car dealerships at the time, and I was in my early 20s. He was in like middle to late 20s. Um, so it was technically my second relationship. So I didn't handle it. I didn't handle it well. I did not. So, you break up with me and I'm at work and I'm like furious. I'm upset. It like ruined my whole day. So I'm there at work and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like going around telling my coworkers, I'm like texting and calling my friends, my cousins and all those, everybody. I did not handle it well. I then took it to social media and at the time I had, the young 20 something year old attitude that's out there in the world. I was like, how dare he? I'm a catch. I'm the prize. I was a good woman. I was his wife, just going off making all these crazy posts. Like, I can't stand these little boys. They be such and such age and older than you, and they're still boys. I went off. And then, of course, because he had just broke up with me like 5 minutes before, we were still following each other on social media. So he was like taunting me and responded back to my posts and stuff. And that's why I said he reversed and ran back over my heart because it made it worse. So,
Oh wow, so you
unfortunately.
were straight up wilding.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, me, I would have to say I did have a guy that I really like break up with me, but it was my fault. When I was 14, what is that, ninth grade? I ended up going to camp. And while I was at camp, it was this guy who started liking on me. And so, we stayed in a lodge where on one side there was the boys and the other side was the girls. And in the middle, we would kind of have, after we finished all like the classes and the things that they had planned for us through the day, we would just kind of socialize there. And so he had expressed, during like lunchtime that he liked me, and there was another girl who liked him. And I was pretty much like, well, like on her. And he was like, he didn't like her, he liked me. And so to prove it, one night when we were, having our little chill session in the lodge, he got on one knee and was asked he the third day and said that he really liked me in front of everybody. And so he asked me to be his girl, and I was like, yeah. But I'm sitting there like, how am I do that when I got a boyfriend at home that I really liked? And then when I got home, because we didn't know each other prior to camping. So when I got home, I found out that he had a car, that his family had money, and he was and not it's not that I was after that. It was just that he was the first guy who like took me out to a real restaurant. Whereas my boyfriend, who was a real sweetheart, he would work, do his little errands and his little $7 to $10. He would take me to Capitol Court, the movies, McDonald's, with his little money. So I think his was more definitely from the heart, where the other guy, he just, had a family who had money. And so it was easier for him to do it. And I was still always, I was careful with his heart. So I came home and told my boyfriend that I slept with somebody and I wanted him to break up with me. And it wasn't technically a lie. When we were at camp, there was a day that we went actually camping outside the lodge. We took our sleeping bags, and that was actually a blast. But we took our sleeping bags. We went to a camping ground and we slept in the same tent, but we did not sleep. Like, I didn't have sex with him. But I told my boyfriend that to break up with me. And then when um I realized I really didn't like the new guy, because for one, he didn't have a lot of time for me. He was a wrestler. And so I just kind of broke it off with him, and I tried to get back with my ex, and he just was not having it. He was very brokenhearted, and so was I at this point, because I realized like I shouldn't have did it. And I tried to explain to him how I lied. I really didn't sleep with him, and his reaction was, "Well, you really wanted to break up with me, so go be with him." So it was my fault. I did deserve that. So this next question, Ebony, how do you know when a man really loves you?
There are a lot of signs where you can pick up on when a man really loves you. Of course, if they are genuine and their actions are lining up with their words, and they're being led by God first and foremost. That they have a personal relationship with God that they are, working on. They're going to be open to God leading them on how to love you. And so they're going to be willing to grow with you. And then also, too, if they're interested in really getting to know you, not just, what you like your favorite color. I'm talking about deep questions like, what are the love languages and how do you like to be loved? How do you like to communicate? Are you one that's more that needs somebody to listen, or do you want somebody to also respond back, when you're talking and your feelings are involved? So I would say, of course, paying attention to your love language, just really understanding how to love you, and also being, I'm not going to say sensitive because that can be a touchy word for men, but being considerate, rather considerate to
Mhm.
things that you have been through in your life to ensure like they're not adding or contributing or putting you back in a space when you've healed and you overcome a trauma, and being considerate of like relationships that you may have had, like say if you didn't have a good relationship with your father for some reason, your father wasn't in your life, or just like a past ex, just being considerate of that. So just really getting to know you, like what triggers you, what upsets you, what makes you happy. Of course, putting you first, over not necessarily like before God, but you know, showing you that you matter versus
Right.
just kind of like using you as a space filler, or oh well, I have time, so I guess I'll spend time with you per se. Of course, and there was one more thing I couldn't think about it. Oh, and just being like having boundaries and respecting each other's boundaries. So of course, like there's going to be arguments and things that you guys may like disagree on, but I feel like a man will really love you. He's not taking your relationship, what you guys talk about with each other, to like his mom, his sister, aunts, another woman at work, another woman in
Right.
general. So just respecting that boundaries, and keeping like your relationship between, the two of you, and also the bedroom. It's not good when a man is telling y'all bedroom secrets and business, to all his friends to try to look cool and look like, he's doing his thing. So I think all of those.
Yeah. Good points. What about you, Miss Marquita? How
So
do you know when a man really loves you?
I just want to preface this with a quote by my husband, Robert Larry. Um, it was crazy because I heard him say this when we were ministering to a couple on our 2-year anniversary of being married. So he said, actions speak louder than words, but words speak clearer than actions, but love requires both. So I want to preface that because just because a man tells you he loves you, he has to be showing you. So I'm going to start off with, when a man really loves you, he is willing to sacrifice and give up certain things for you. So let's take, for example, um, like God. God literally sacrificed his son for us, for the whole world. And that is the standard that God puts on men, especially when it comes to their wives. You should have sacrificial love, especially if she's going to be your wife. You should basically die for her. You should basically lay everything out. You're supposed to cover her. So, and everyone knows the scripture, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son. So everybody knows that. So it's really important that he's able to sacrifice for you. Another indicator that a man loves you, if he actually makes you his priority. And what I mean by that is if he's actually actively demonstrating that he's willing to spend time with you and put you mostly first. So, for example, if your man has like a fun little, I don't know, like bro night or whatever. I don't know what men be doing, like going to bars, watching games, and things like that.
That bro night.
And I don't know what to call it. But when they have that time together, it's like that's important for a guy because, like, we should have a balance with your girl, should have a balance with your friends, have a balance with your work. But sometimes, as his girl, you may want to be like, but I actually want to spend time with you. Can we actually pop some popcorn? Can you come over and can we just chill and have some time together? And because he's your girl, and yeah, because you are his girl, you should basically want to be like, okay, you know what, bro? I ain't gonna be able to make it tonight. We can reschedule, but my girl needs me. She wants to spend time with me. It is what it is. So that's a perfect example. He's actually willing to, in a way, put you first. And I also want to preface this by saying that my husband was the one true person who has shown me a lot of the things that I'm naming off. Because this is like my first real, true, genuine relationship, like, and a real big committed relationship that I've had. So a lot of this stuff, y'all, like, I literally had to think about, well, how did my man love me? How did he show me that he loved me and cared about me? So another thing would be that when he's actually talking and making plans of having like a future with you. Now, I do want to preface this as well by saying sometimes that's not the clearest indicator because, as Tommy said on Martin, it's the GTD, get them draws. Men would literally say anything. I will marry you, girl. And it's like, he's really not genuine unless he's really showing you that he is a husband already, husband material. But I think when a man really truly is like, you know what, I can see myself marrying you. How many kids do you want? I want this many kids. Do you want kids? Talks of having a future to me is like a true indicator that he really has true and pure intentions with you and that he wants to build a life with you. I will also say that when a man checks in with you, it's also an indicator that he actually loves you. If a man doesn't say where he's going or what he's doing and got you wondering, he don't care nothing about you. You are no value to him. And that's something that my husband has always done, even while we were dating. It was just like, hey, I got to go to rehearsal. I actually got to go preach this. I actually got to go to church to do this. He always made sure. And it wasn't like I was forcing him and controlling him to tell me where he was going. It was just something like, hey, babe, I know we made plans, but I actually got something to do at the church because they asked me to stay longer to do X, Y, and Z. But after I'm done, I'm going to come roll over to your spot. Then it's like, hey, babe, I actually got to get some gas. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to get my gas and I'm going to come to you. It was just like a consistent thing where I'm like, oh, wow, I don't got to ask him. He'll just tell me. Another indicator is when he's actually patient with you. When a man is patient with you, it's such a sexy thing too. It's just like, you know that you got your character flaws, but if he's willing to kind of endure that with you, that is definitely an indicator that this man really, really loves you. And there's some certain things that you probably should not, a man should never want to take from a woman, like, or a woman should never take from a man. It's just like the habitual cheating. It's just like, you don't need to be patient with that. Like, you don't got, right. You can leave. But but when it comes to certain things, like, I'm gonna give you guys a personal example. When me and my husband first started dating, again, we were high schoolers. I didn't know anything about having a real, true, like, loving relationship. And I grew up in a household where my dad was the one that was saying, hey, you know, I love you and I'm proud of you. And my mom was never really like that. She wasn't stone like cold with her words or anything, but it's just like, she showed me that she loved me and my brother. Like, that's fine. But I always got it from my dad. And my dad and I had a very, very complicated father-daughter relationship. So maybe it was the reason why I didn't always, I don't know, say it. So me and Rob got together. I never said I loved him. I never said, because I didn't know what like real love was. And on top of that, it's like he got frustrated because he's like, well, you're not telling me how you feel about me. And he's used to a lot of like affirmations from his mom because his mom always did that for him. So he's just looking at me like, why don't you ever tell me how you feel? Because a man needs that too, not just us women. And I'm like, I don't know. I could show you, but I can tell you. Don't you feel loved? And he's like, that's cool, but I need you to tell me. Why do you like me? Why do you love me? So that's something that he had to be patient with me for some years, y'all. It took a couple of years for that to happen. And now, especially now that we're married, it just rolls off my tongue. Baby, this is why I love you. Thank you for covering me today. Thank you for paying this for me today. Like, when a man really truly wants to be with you and he loves you, he is able to be patient with you when it comes to certain character flaws. And last but not least, I would say when a man respects your boundaries. And Ebony, like, you hit the nail right on the head. I'm like, yes, there you go. When a man is able, especially if you're open to him about certain boundaries, we can easily think of like a sexual boundary. Hey, I want to wait till marriage to have sex. Some men would be like, I don't know about all that. And others would be like, okay, I respect that. But also, even if a man does say that, sometimes it's like, I'm going to wear her down. Y'all know, like Urkel, I'm wearing you down. Like, it's like he's going to do whatever it takes to kind of get you to kind of break that vow that you made to yourself. Or also, if it comes to a point where it's like you don't want to open up about certain things from your childhood. And it's just like, I'm willing to talk to you, but not right now. I will come to you. If a man is forcing you to basically open up to him about that, you're not respecting her boundaries. He doesn't have any respect for you at all. Because if you shared that with him and you're going against what she asked of you, you don't live. So those are pretty much the biggest things for me. Like when a man really truly loves you, he will show you all of that.
Wow. So okay, definitely a lot to think about. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to think about. I guess I want to approach this from this point of view. There was you I mean, we know Lauryn Hill. So she has this old album I love called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And on it there was a prelude where this teacher is asking these kids what is their definition of love. And one girl, she breaks down, she says she's explaining the difference between love and being in love. So now love to me is like general. Like we're supposed to, as believers especially, we're supposed to love everybody like God, loves us unconditionally, no matter what. It's not attached to how we feel. It's just that, because God is love, we're reflecting him. So if somebody needs something to eat, we're supposed to feed them. That's a form of love. But being in love to me is when you're in it. So when you're saying I'm going to be committed to you. And so the difference of that is, some people say, well, I don't need, we don't need a marriage license. I love her, she loves me. If a man is not willing to be in love with you, he's just loving you. He'll get on you, but he's not willing to get in you. I mean, yeah, get into you. He'll get on you, but he's not willing to get into you. So to me, that's love. When a man loves you, he's willing to be in love with you. His heart is in it. He's willing to be committed. He's willing to fight for you. And he's proud of you too. He's willing to show you off. And so when you're with a man and he's saying stuff like, well, we don't got to be married. I don't need to, we don't need to do that. It's just paper. Because when we don't understand as women is men, our bodies are like a sacrifice when we're having babies, when we're doing the wife duty, because although, that wedding day is awesome, it's something being a wife. It's a lot of work. You don't get all the accolades. You might get it twice a year. And for the most part, you just feel like I'm just a wife. It goes from like, oh, I'm a wife to like I'm just a wife sometimes. So you definitely want a man to be in it with you, committed to say, I know we don't have to be this way, but I want you to know that I'm in it with you for the long haul. So when you have my babies and your stomach stretched out a little bit, I'm still going to be there for you. I'm not going to trade you in. Um, and then too, you said all of this, but like when he's protective over you, he wants to take care of you and he wants to be around you. He wants to take care of you. Some men will say, like you said, whatever they they'll say anything you want to hear to get whatever they want. And that could be a nice warm bed. It can be a live-in booty, so men will marry a woman. This is what I'm coming to find out. Just because a man will even marry you does not really mean that he's into you. He'll say, because I've this guy said, I want a wife, but it was because he was older now and you know, he's just ready to settle down. He wants somebody to be there. He wants company, but he was still very much selfish. And so he would just have like a glorified roommate. Like you're here, and you know how when you don't have a man's heart, you know it, you feel it. You know it. It's like there's no connection there. You're just doing duties. That's why I'm very careful about that whole woman's supposed to do this, a man is supposed to do this. You know, the sexiest thing is for me to see a man in the kitchen with a pot,
Amen.
frying something with fire coming out. That is the sexiest thing to me. So, and it's more of understanding that this is our life together instead of that's your job. You know, it's like, no, you're not in this with me. You're not in love with me. You're just with me. We're sharing the bills. You got it's convenient. Um, and then when he gives to you, like you said, um, because God is love and he gave, you know, the scripture, John 3:16, he gave. So anybody that's not willing to give from you to you is taking. And you know, you got to kind of go with me because I look at things a little differently. But love is actually made up of both giving and taking. It's you because in order for if I'm giving, somebody got to be on the other end receiving, taking. Lust and love kind of can look alike. Um, but it's so honestly, a healthy marriage or a healthy relationship is both lust and love. And I know that sounds crazy, but lust is really a desire for something, to receive something. It's just that can be unhealthy lust. So we do need both. We need both giving and the taking in order to have a real healthy, well-rounded love. It's just that a lot of people are in a lot of these relationships just to take. And so when you're taking more than you're giving, there's a depletion going on. So both parties should be both giving and receiving. Um, so I have here, I said, when he gives to you, but giving along is not proof, real proof of love. Because in this chapter, Mark is giving too. He's giving Shell this and that, but a lot of times that can be out of habit. You know, like, okay, he was raised like this is what a man is supposed to do. So he'll give you stuff, but really, you know, a man loves you when he gives you his heart. So, and I also heard this quote. This was from not really, well, maybe it was a quote, but Dr. Prophet Todd Hall. He said, "Stingy men make abusive husbands." Stingy men make abusive husbands. So when a man is very stingy, you definitely want to run away from him. He is definitely not a reflection of our God. Definitely no, run away. Um, when he'll protect you, and that doesn't mean that he's doesn't mean that he's not scared to. It just means that he's brave and that he cares about what he's been investing in. So if he's giving to you, and it's like with anything, like even your kid. I mean, I've heard mothers who their kids were your child was almost or stuck under a car and they got this energy from somewhere and just, you know, out of fear, they were able to conjure up some crazy strength to lift the car up to get their kid out. And sometimes a man, because I don't want to, you know, kind of get in that role of a man supposed to be tough. No, a man, he can be scared, but bravery is doing it while you're scared.
Yeah.
There was many times where I was faced with things and I was scared to death, but I did it anyway. And people would call me fearless and you this, and it's like, no, I was scared out of my mind. Even this one example, a couple years ago, I was out with my stepmom, half mom, stepmom, and we were in Texas. We were out at this restaurant, and she started the soul food restaurant, and she started choking on some cabbage. Now I'm looking around, I'm scared. Like inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't hear nothing coming out of her. And so I look around and nobody's looking, and I'm like, I better do something, otherwise she gonna die. And so I got up scared and I got it out, and you know, she coughed it up and she was like, when she came to, she's like, thank you so much. And I was like, did I do it right? She's like, well, I'm alive. And she's like, my God. So she was all on Facebook posting, Sheree saved my life. And she was so calm. I was like, I was bananas on the inside. So it does not necessarily mean that a man is always, you know, just, you know, he pumps up, but it's almost an instinct to protect what he loves, even if that means he is scared, but he'll still do it scared. There was this one episode of Blackish. Y'all ever watch Blackish?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dre is the husband. And what is his real name though?
And is it Anthony something?
Anthony Anthony
Anderson?
Anderson, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anderson. What is Anthony Anderson? Okay, so Anthony Anderson and then Joan, well, I call her Joan, but she's Diana Ross's daughter. Yeah. So her name is Bo on the show. So they went on it was, I think it was their anniversary. So they ended up going to this restaurant, I think, that they met at. And so it was kind of in the hood, in the hood. So this guy had said something crazy to her, and her husband, Dre, he just kind of diffused it. Like he didn't want no trouble. So she was feeling some kind of way when she got home, like, well, why did he fight for me? So then all of a sudden, she had confided in, I think, somebody in the house. And you know how they go, they was spreading it around. So all of a sudden they showing these little clips. I love this show where now she's putting up TVs and she's doing all of this stuff. And so subliminally it was like, he ain't no man. But I wanted to say that because I thought she was kind of out of order, because she just felt like because he wouldn't fight for her, that he was a punk. But I honestly, if a woman is just wanting a man to fight for her, if she doesn't really care about him, to me, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I would rather for my man to try to diffuse it. Now, if he can't, that's different. And then I got his back. So I'm not fit to just be sitting there looking at him get fight or get whooped. I'm gonna be doing something. I was so proud of my daughter. Well, not really, but yes, I was. So my daughter was dating a guy, and they both weren't really violent, but they ended up in a situation when they were off to college where she confided in me later and told me that he was getting jumped, and she jumped in. Now you got to know my daughter. My daughter was very mellow. She was kind of like always chill. But she, jumped in. She didn't just let him get beat up. And I was pretty happy about that. Like, okay, I'm glad you had his back, because he was, he would have had hers, is what I'm trying to say. But like, just because a woman who loves a man should not just want him to always put himself in harm's way. Like, she should want him to at least try to diffuse it with peace. And then if he can't, of course, then, do his best to defend what he needs to defend. But anyway, I was laughing at that episode. Was so funny to me. So this next question, Markeita, how do you know when a man doesn't love you? And I guess we did kind of touch on that, but let's roll with it.
So basically the opposite of everything I said, plus more. If he neglects you, if he doesn't make you his priority, if he doesn't even care to check in, if he doesn't respect the boundaries that you set in place for him. Also, if he abuses you, whether that's emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually, financially, it's so many different forms of abuse out there. But if scripture says multiple times, like, your body is a temple, and you should, if you would never beat yourself up or talk down on yourself, what makes you think you can do that to a partner, especially someone that you claim to love? Your body is holy. Your body is a shrine. Like, that's not something you should do, especially, like, again, and girlfriends, wives, like, especially wives, like, never allow your husband to ever do that to you, because that is not biblical. That is not godly. And I will also say that and this is kind of touching on the second chapter of the book, if he habitually cheats on you. I personally feel, and I know there could be debates out there about it, I personally feel like if a man continuously cheats on you over and over and over again, to me, he don't love you. Because, and as our pastor say, it's like, you're going to have temptations, but it's what you do with that temptation. If you sit up there and be like, okay, she fine, and then it's like, oh, I want to hit, and you gonna hit, it's like, bruh, you got a whole girl at home, whether that's a girlfriend or a wife. Like, you got no business cheating on your girl for someone that you said you love. So if he consistently cheats on you, also if he's not validating your feelings, I think that especially us as women, we always say like we're emotional creatures. Men are too, but just differently. But if we're pouring our heart out, or if we want to talk to our man about something, then he may not consider it to be a big deal. I've had that multiple times with my husband where it's like, someone says something and it aggravated me and I just want to vent and I need to talk to you. And he could have a long day at work. And on top of that, go to rehearsals and then come back around 10 o'clock and I want to talk. And I feel bad sometimes, but it's like, I'm emotional and I want you to help me get through it because he always helps me. And he has told me this multiple times. It's just like, I understand that you're in this certain space, but don't ever feel like I'm going to be mad or I'm going to turn you away simply because you need to talk to me. Whatever's important to you is what's important to me because I'm your husband. This is a us thing, not just a you thing. That was sexy, y'all. I'm like,
You said
okay.
that was sexy.
I'm like, okay. There are certain times where it's like, okay, I don't need to talk to him at 1 o'clock in the morning because he like, I'm trying to go to sleep. I got to get up for work. You know this. But when a man is willing to actually understand and try to get your point of view and understand where you're coming from, like, okay, I hear you. This is what you're telling me, and I understand this is a big deal to you. So, okay, so how can I help you? What do you want me to do? Or even if it's just him being a listening ear, just basically having a man who's able to validate how you feel is really, really important. Um, and also, my husband kind of had to help me out with this too, because I'm like, he's a man. So I'm like, what do you think about this question? Um, he told me, which was a really, really good thing, because I didn't even think about this. Like, when a man doesn't love you, the relationship will start to feel like really transactional. Like, I'm gonna do this for you just because you did this for me. Like, and there's really no love in that. It's just like he brought up a great example. So a couple years back, I was working at the store called Bare Minerals at a mall in Milwaukee, and he was my ride. So he had to drive me to and from work like consistently. But the fact of the matter is, and he said every single time, because I worked mainly on the weekends, like Friday, Saturday, and some Sundays. Anytime he has something to do, I always call and be like, "Hey, I'm off," and he's just like, I'm in the middle of something, or I was planning on doing this. But that's the thing. He didn't need a reason to come and get me. It was just like, okay, she off, she off. I know I got things I got to do, but hey, it doesn't even matter. I'm going to go pick up my girl. And it's just like, if you're doing something just for the sake of doing it because someone else did it for you, it's just like, and that goes back into like the sacrificial thing as well, kind of giving up those things. Um, but if a man is not willing to just do something for you without expecting nothing in return, like that man don't love you at all, in my opinion. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Plus everything that I said as well. So yeah.
Thank you. What about you, Miss Ebony?
Yeah, so I'm going to piggyback off of that because those are some really good, valid points. And also too, if you ever feel like your partner is trying to use any type of manipulation tactics or in trying to intimidate you, that's not love. Like, you should not have to force someone to be with you. I don't care how much, oh baby, I'm sorry, baby, please, I'm begging you. That's not love. They're just, it's more so one-sided. They're just caring about what they get out of it and what they want, and they're not trying to care about your happiness and, your well-being in that. They shouldn't have to intimidate you. Also, if a man is keeping track of what he does for you or for you and your kids, that's another sign of, not genuinely loving you. Um, and then two, I had in my notes. Oh, when a man is constantly putting you down, even if it's like a joke, like, oh, you snore in your sleep, or, I can't sleep because you're always snoring. That might seem like, a little harmless joke at the beginning, but if he keeps saying it on and on and on, and then the next thing you know, the next joke is, oh, your hair is this texture, and I like, women with this type of hair texture. If they keep picking up, like a guy keeps picking up on putting you down in a way, but trying to cover it as a joke, there's this saying that there's a little bit of truth in every joke. So that's a red flag within itself. If he's trying to bring you down, tear down your character, if ever you guys are having a disagreement and an argument, he's calling you some very vicious names, or he's attacking your character when you know you are a child of God and a woman of God and stuff, and he's going against what God has actually said you are, that's another red flag. Like he's allowing the devil to use him to tear down your character, to tear you down just all around. And of course that ties into verbal abuse. So yeah, if he tries to bring you down, also if he's always looking at other women when y'all are out, imagine what he's doing when you're not around, when he's with the boys. So that's a red flag, because I've been there where every time we went somewhere, it don't matter if the girl was even of age, it was just like, oh, legs are there, I'm going to I'm going to look. And it was so bad to the point where like we couldn't even enjoy going to a restaurant and just having lunch or something, because he was always just looking at everybody. And then it got to the point where, you know how someone's on their phone and then they're trying to cover it up because they hear you coming in the room or something. He's just like trying to hide his phone. Like, that's another red flag. And then it got to the point where he started comparing me to the women that he was seeing on social media while we were out and stuff like that. So that's another way. Like, you'll know when a man doesn't love you, because if he's constantly looking around at everybody else, he's not appreciative of what's right there in front of him, which means he may be one of those that just might not ever be satisfied. And that's between him and God, but that is something um, that'll let you know, like, a man does not genuinely love you because he's not satisfied. A man should love you unconditionally. He should not have eyes for anyone else. There's beautiful, beautiful people all over this world, men and women. There's going to be people at your job and at Target. There's going to be people, okay? It's going to be people at the kids' school. But if a man genuinely loves you, he's not going to be fazed by that. He's not. He's going to know. He's going to value and appreciate what's right there in front of him. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Y'all were all up in my old relationship. Jesus, I'm so serious. But one thing that my dad had told me, he said, when a man really loves a woman, he doesn't even really see her flaws. He was saying, like, all the extra stuff y'all do is really for other women. Because when a man loves you, he does not see your flaws. And so, what I experienced was a very critical, which he would hide it because we used to gun or whatever. But then it was like, and during the marriage, it was always just putting me down, putting me down. And I was working so hard to be beautiful. And so other men would be like, man, your wife bad, but he wouldn't say anything. And, if somebody gave me a compliment, he'd be like, well, why you got on them shoes though? It was always something, that he was trying to pull me down. And other people would be like, dang. Because, me, when I go hard, I go hard. So I was really trying my best. And it was like nothing ever satisfied him. He always had something critical to say. So you are very right. And then even Marquita, what you said about tit for tat, if I did something for him, then he did something, he was, looking for me to do something for him if he did something for me. So it was like one of the biggest things we struggled with was him taking me out. And so literally it was years he hadn't taken me out. Like, we'll go kick it with other people, but just me one on one with him, it was nothing. So I don't know, it was like 7 years at this point. And I was like, why don't you come and have lunch with me since you off today? So he did, and we had a good time. And then when we got back in the truck, or he dropped me off at work because he picked me up. And then when I'm getting out, he was like, well, since I did that for you, then what do I get? And I was like, that's when I realized, like, he don't love me. He didn't even want to do that. And so that's why I said I was really running from adultery, because it was like other men, like almost like, oh, I wish you was my wife. And I'm talking about some of his friends, so it wasn't just, and even his one friend walked in one day and he was like, dang, your wife fine. And my ex was just like, just go upstairs, but just stuff like that, where I needed to hear that, because if I wouldn't have, I would have just thought, I would have felt like what he was giving me, like I wasn't. So, yeah, 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 I had to hit it all. Okay, so Marquita, for this one, have you ever been cheated on? If so, how did you handle it?
Um, so my husband never cheated on me. With my first relationship, I always got to put my quotes relationship. Allegedly, he did. Yeah, I didn't really care. I found that out after I found that out after we broke up. And I was like years later, which was funny. Like, oh, he was cheating on you. I'm like, oh, word. Oh, okay. That's sad to say, but it was like it was a stupid like high school relationship. I wasn't that serious with the guy anyway. So allegedly, yeah, but I didn't really care. So yeah.
What about you, Ebony? Have you ever been cheated on?
I have with the guy that dumped me when I was at work, y'all. It was it was him. It was old boy.
Oh,
Yes. Um. So yeah, but you know what? Um. I felt like I was mentally prepared. You know how like you have like a gut feeling. So not only was I having this gut feeling for probably a couple weeks, I'm the type of person, I'm not about to go through your phone. I'm not, because someone told me at from a very young age, you go snooping and looking for something, you're gonna find it. And because he was the type that was always looking at someone else and looking on social media and talk to anything with legs, I was like, I'm not about to go through your phone. Um, so I tried to ignore like my gut feeling, just being young and dumb. But then it got to the point where social media posts were being made that made it super obvious. And I mean, it was like some very disturbing stuff, like, oh, when you're what does it say? When your main girl sit riding in a car with you and your side B word with the best head is calling you, and now you got to explain yourself. Like, he would make posts like that almost every day, and it seemed like he was trying to tell me something. So I was just like, okay. Um, so I started, you start noticing phone going off at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Snapchat, different social media apps going off, being notified, text messages coming in disguised as different people names or initials. So there was a lot of red flags. So when he dumped me, even though I was hurt and upset, like I knew. So once I came down off my, my I'm all this in a bag of chips rant, I was like, well, you know what? I'm glad I'm not with that guy. I'm glad I am not with that guy anymore, because, I kind of felt like something was going on. And then sure enough, not only was he cheating, he was messing around with, coworker and some stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, well, my high school sweetheart. So this wasn't my first love. This was my high school sweetheart. This was the one that I ended up having my first baby by. Yeah, he cheated on me a lot. And I actually did try to break up with him, but he was the mania. I didn't know how to get away from him. But girl, he was so crazy because he was like really flashy. Now me, they used to call me Plain Jane because I didn't really wear makeup. But when I got 16, my mom let me wear makeup, so I put it on, and that was it. Once a day. If it went off, I wasn't in the bathroom. I wasn't that girl who went in the bathroom and put her makeup on all day. So, and he was like total opposite, flashy, fur coats, all the latest clothes. He got his hair permed and I mean, he was that dude for real. So we were like a odd couple. And people thought it was me holding on to him, but it was him holding on to me. And I knew why, because I was very nurturing. I knew why. But he would cheat on me so much. It was like he was one way with me. And I really felt like he genuinely cared about me when we were together, with just me and him.
mhm,
But then when he wasn't with me, it was like he needed to be affirmed by other people. He needed to show he was somebody. So he was really struggling with some inward that had nothing to do with me. And I've caught him a few times hugged up with a girl coming down the hall. I'm going to my class and I turn down some place I normally don't go, and here he is with another chick, and they'll know about me. Like, they'll know, and then they'll just walk off and laugh, whatever. It was one time I worked at Northridge, but for some reason I was like, I'm done with this job, and I didn't quit, but I had an interview at Mayfair Mall at this place called Expressy Portraits, because I used to be a photographer when I was 16. So my brother, he picks me up. He takes me to Mayfair. I had the interview, rocked it, and we coming out. I'm telling them about the interview, and I see my boyfriend hugged up with another chick, and he had told me a lie, like he was supposed to be somewhere else. So my brother was like, "Ooh," and I was like, "I'll be back." He's like, "No, don't go." I was like, "No, I'll be right back." So I walked up to them, and I said, "I just want you to, I just wanted you to see me because I didn't want you to say this wasn't you." So the girl, she runs off and she's in the opening of another store. She's just laughing. And so he was so crazy though. Like, I was done. It was over because I'm like, I'm tired of this. I was really trying to get away from him. But he ended up kidnapping me and taking me over the girl's house. And so so we ended up having a car accident because we had a spin out. One time he had I can't remember that car. It started with a P. Um,
Pontiac.
no, not a Pontiac. It was one of them long, older looking cars. Anyway, we had a spin out and the passenger side got dented in so the door couldn't open. So that's how he ended up kidnapping me. I couldn't get out the car. So he like wrestled me into from the driver's seat in the car and had me blocked in. Took me over her house so the girl that I seen him with at the mall can explain to me why I needed to stay with him and how they was just like hanging out and she got a boyfriend and like he was the extreme with his craziness. So he wouldn't let me go. But he was really dog at Great America. I think this was after prom. We're at Great America with another couple. And I didn't ride that one wood ride. What was it called? You remember that wood ride at Great America? They may still have it. But I never got on that ride. So I was like, y'all can go, I'll stand on the little bridge and watch. Girl, the thing coming around, he hugged up on the ride with some other chick. So I went off on him, and the other couple was mad too because he like messed up our day. Because I was like, dude, don't touch me. Now the whole vibe was off. But girl, he was terrible, and I did my best to get away from him, but um, I ended up having to put him in jail. So that's how I ended up handling him with the whole cheating thing. Yeah, that was a lot. I'm so glad. And so, welcoming this question as we talk about that. Number 5, how does it make you feel when someone tells you they can't live without you? Markeita.
Skirt. Um, um, that's very alarming. Um, to me, that's like borderline obsession mixed in with a lot of desperation. That ain't cute to me. That will never be cute to me. No one has ever said that to me. Thank God. Um, the only way, if it was phrased as, I don't want to lose you, then that's fine. But like, I can't live without you. It's like, yes, you can. Like, you can. And to me, that's really dangerous because to me that's an indicator that, and this is something that my husband taught me about early on in our actual relationship when we were dating, was like, I never want to be with a woman who loves me more than she loves God. And to me, if someone says I can't live without you, that's an indicator to me that they are making you or the relationship or whatever y'all got going on an idol. You putting way too much faith and trust into man instead of really putting all of that into God. So that's uncomfortable. That ain't sexy, that ain't cute, that'll never be cute. Don't say that. Please don't.
What about you, Miss Ebony? How does it make you
Yeah,
feel when somebody tells you that?
unfortunately, I've heard that twice. Heard that twice from 2 different guys. Red flag, like Marquita said, red flag all over the place. They are trying to make you an idol. They're trying to put so much pressure on you to be, so perfect and stuff. And then as soon as something go wrong, and you upset them, they're gonna take. And then also too, the only one we can't live without is God. So if you feel like you can't live without me, you ain't walking with God. Which means you might be walking with the devil, and he might put something in your head to do something if I leave you. So it's a red flag. I don't like that feeling. I've even had my most recent ex, like his family basically back him up with saying that. And even when we were going through court, they were like, well, it's just, that's just love. That's just really, him, this is way of loving you. No, it's not okay when family members get involved either, trying to coddle the situation and try to paint it as this picture of someone just being, just really in love with you. That's not love. Like Marquita said, that's an obsession. That's someone viewing you as more so as property that they can control, territory that I don't like. I don't like nothing about that. I would advise anyone, if you've heard that, get the heck away from that person. In my situation, I have to co-parent with this person, unfortunately, and I have to set boundaries. And I being this weekly, I have to set boundaries because weekly this person is thinking of new ways to overstep boundaries to try to get his way back into my life. So set boundaries, be stern and firm, first and foremost, pray and be led by the Spirit and ask for God to cover you under the blood of Jesus, because that is something personal that person has going on. And if you're in a situation like me where their family is co-signing it, you're going to need the blood of Jesus to protect you. Put up, walls and barriers, stuff, tear that soul tie off so that person can really understand, like, the only one I need is God. But yeah, I don't like it. I wouldn't want my worst enemy to go through that, because the harassment behind that. And there's this saying, which y'all let me know if y'all heard this before. There's this saying, the most disrespected woman or disrespected person is a Black woman. And when I tell you that from my early 20s, I've learned that, like, no matter how many times I've went to the police, how many times I've tried to go to even therapists, people will not, they do not care about your safety. So you have to walk with God. If you come in contact with somebody, run. Get away from that person right away. And of course, pray and walk with God, because you're going to need to be protected, but get away from that person, because it's not normal. It's not okay. You just hear so many women and children that usually are an ex of a guy, ex-wife, ex-girlfriend. These guys usually have moved on, will be with someone else and have several other kids, and will still be focused on that one woman who had the backbone to really get away from him. So if that's your situation, definitely stay away and get away.
Yeah, well, I have lived that, and it is so not fun when you want to walk away from someone and they don't want to let you go, when they're showing up at your door, when they're following you around. That is, it sounds cute when you first meet somebody and you're in love, you having those little flutters. Oh, I love you. I can't live without you. Oh, so it's cool when y'all feel the same way. But when I'm saying it feels good when you feel the same way, but when you realize I want to get away from them and they're saying I can't live without you and they're showing it, girl, that is a whole different ball game. And I'm so glad I got out when I did. I mean, even though I had to do all that I had to do, I ended up being cool with my daughter's sister's mom. And she was telling me, like, she tried to break it off with him one time and he came up in her house window while she had company. So dude sitting on the couch and he coming through the window, girl. I said, so I can't even imagine had it been out after, because we were going through that while he was living with his parents.
Mm.
So if we would have, like, if I would have been a young adult, had my own place, because I had my own place at 19, I can't even imagine what I would have been going through with him. Oh my God. So and it's Pastor Ken, he had did that one lesson. It was called or one message. It was called All Love is Not the Same. And he was talking about mania love. And he, was totally explaining this, how it's like they're constantly, where you going? Following you around, it was a perfect description of what I felt like I was going through. It was just crazy. And also there was this story on the news some years back. This is one of the reasons why I did not let my kids date when they were in high school. And it was, people were like, you know what? I think your daughter, she's responsible. She wouldn't get pregnant. And I was trying to explain to them, it's not always about just being pregnant.
Right.
Handling somebody's heart, that's something that we got to start taking more seriously. That's why there's so many traumatic people, people who are traumatized and they're doing all of this stuff because their heart has been broken over and over and over again. And just having that experience with me in high school with him, I realized I was that young, realizing that he had some unresolved mommy issues. And I would see sometimes how, when his mom would say certain things, how his face would turn, and I can see the brokenness in his heart and how he would respond almost like a little kid sometimes. And I knew that. And so part of the reason why I kind of stayed a little longer with him is because I saw that. And I wanted to try to help him through it and let him know, well, I'm here for you. But then all the cheating, I'm like, you can't have both. You can't have me here and then you constantly cheating on me. So when I wanted to leave, it was like, no, you're not going nowhere. So, I'm trying to explain to people, it's not about them just getting a disease or getting pregnant. It's about them not being able to handle somebody's heart. And I mean, and I'm like, and that's a big thing. I mean, they couldn't even handle cleaning up their room. I just didn't feel like it was, like you're not ready to handle nobody's heart. So it's not just that, it's definitely that. But I wanted to share like this young girl back in the day was on the news. She had gotten pregnant in high school, and they her and she had a baby with the guy, and they were together, and then she wanted to better her life. So she told him like, well, I want to go off. I think she was going off to the reserves or like the army or something like that, Navy. And he didn't want her to leave. Like he was like, no, you got to stay here with me. And the day she was going to leave, he ended up shooting her and killing her. So it's like, well, for one, I do feel like it is the business as a church now to reach these young kids, because they're, like, it's like you have your whole life ahead of you. I don't, and that's why it's dangerous to me to let kids play with each other's hearts in high school. I know we can't stop it all, but they need counseling. We need to get back to being not mediators, what am I trying to say? Mentors. We need to get back to that kind of stuff to help these kids. One of the things I have, being 49, being able to see was back in the day how parents would be out, like when we were out playing kickball, there would be like an older person out there. And now I realize why. It was because, for one, they were watching over us to make sure, because we were young Black kids, almost like a protection. They were also teaching us how to lose, because it was this one guy named George. I think he passed away from cancer, but he was older than us, and he would be playing football with us and pom pom tag and kickball. And he was just there. He was a busy guy, but he always made time for us. And he would say, like, "You get back up, don't get mad, just get better." Just teaching us how to lose, building our character. We need more people like that. These kids need guidance, and they're thinking, love, this is love, and they have no idea what love is. And then they're thinking, if I lose this person, my life is over, and that is not so. So, um, definitely, when somebody said they can't live without you, especially today, that is definitely a red flag. And I think you need to get even more than the authorities involved. You need to probably get a pastor and some holy water. No, just
Exorcisms.
Jesus. Um, so I want to guess conclude with this. For us as believers, for when we know just in general that a man of God should love us like Christ loved the church, and he should be willing to give his life. And that doesn't always look like him literally dying, but giving up his selfishness, like to do things for just him. He should have a sacrificial life. So when a guy is not really willing to give up anything for you, if he's not willing to give up sleep when you're sick,
Mm.
because I had that. My ex-husband, I'm sick, and he's like, "Well, I'm hot," and I'm like, "Well, I got the chills." "Well, I'm hot." I'm like, "Well, we got a 2,000 square feet downstairs. Can you go downstairs and turn on we got some fans down there. You can turn on the air." And so he just didn't care. And, it even got to the point was like, I was like, "Well, who's the woman?" Like, you want me, you would rather for me to suffer than you. So when he's not willing to sacrifice anything, going to work to make sure the things that he care about have a roof over his head. So if he's willing to just sit on the couch while you go to work, and girl, when I tell you I seen it all, I had a friend, she was and I loved her dearly, but I kind of had to cut her off because I hate seeing my friends go through stuff like that. And she was starting to hate me because my relationship didn't look like hers. But she had a guy, she had 2 kids by him already, and she was pregnant with twins, y'all. Twins. So that means that was a total of 4 kids, and she was pregnant with twins. So he didn't work. He did come back to babysit though. So like what he would do is he would watch the kids at work. I mean, while she was at work, and she worked up, I'm talking about to the 9th month,
Mm.
while she was pregnant with his twins. But his mama was telling her to leave him. When your mama start telling you to leave, girl, you need to leave.
Listen,
Or when
yeah.
his mama, yeah, you need to leave. But she stayed with them for a while, and she always was comparing him with my ex-husband. Well, at the time, because he was an okay boyfriend. It's just that when I got married to him, he looked at me as his property. So, but yeah, I hated to see that, but no, he wouldn't. So when a man is just sitting around and he can watch you labor, and without blinking, that ain't love. If he can't, I have here giving up what makes you uncomfortable, like oh yes, giving up what makes you uncomfortable. So like if you have women friends and they're disrespecting you or crossing boundaries, and he's arguing with you to keep them around, he probably wants them more. The one he's defending is probably who he really loves.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it may be that he would literally give up his life. It don't mean, like I said, you just go starting fights, because that means you might not probably love him. But that, he is willing to, like, if he had to choose, he would give up his life. And it's kind of like, the mama thing. Any good mama would not, it's just almost instinct. Like, you put yourself in the way to protect your kids, even just by instinct. But the key word is that he has to be giving something. So if you have a man who's stingy, who's not willing to give, you really ain't got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rock family. Sometimes certain topics can trigger old emotions. So if at any point during this head trauma discussion season, you feel you need to talk to someone, please do. And for some reason, if you do not have access to a trusted source, feel free to check out some of our recommendations by visiting www.rockwithmenow.com. Once at the homepage, select the Rock Challenges tab, and then filter through the list available to see what may possibly suit you. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.